Hello and welcome to this week's podcast broadcast of This Week in Science. We are here to talk about sciencey things. Right, Justin?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, good. I hope everybody
By the way, can you hear what sounds
Nice,
like a mastodon being rendered in the background? No, it stopped.
No mastodon rendering.
A bakery downstairs.
Ah.
So I may be muting a couple of times because some mornings their equipment is especially creaky sounding.
It's just, that little bit of extra that gets added to the program. All right. I hope everyone here is ready to enjoy a lot of the science fun. So glad to be here. And this is our time to let you know that if you like the edited things, head over to our podcast, wherever podcasts are found. We have a YouTube podcast, and you can get the edited version. This is live, uncut, real time while we're doing it. So we're glad you're here for the warts and all. But, we might talk about, I don't know. We might talk about warts. No, I don't think warts is on the show.
Can I just ask a question? Isn't this the YouTube podcast, the live broadcast?
No, this is our live show, our live stream. There is also the recorded video after the fact. Then there is the podcast, which is audio only, that people can subscribe to because they used to have Google Music and Google Podcasts, but they got rid of that and everything's YouTube Music now. So tell your friends, we're on YouTube Music if you want the edited podcast there.
I'm so behind.
Yeah. It's confusing. Let me tell you, it's a thing to keep up with. I've been keeping up with these things for years. Oh my gosh.
I just found this on a thing that I hadn't heard about before.
Soon. Yeah.
There's like a podcast, what do you call it? Source place where you go to find all your podcasts, a place where podcasts can be found here in the European market that I'd never heard of before. And I was looking at, and I found my show. This show, our show,
right?
This Week in Science is on that thing that I'd never heard of before.
I tell you, I try and keep.
It's good to know.
Very good. I'm very glad to know we are there. Places you've never heard of.
Even the places that we didn't tell you to look, we're already there. So that's how you found us. That's how you're hearing this now. That's how you know.
We're glad you're here. Invite your friends.
You already know.
Yeah, make sure you're signed up for subscriptions, notifications, and tell your friends. Share right now and share the recordings later. And let's get in the algorithms because I think we're ready to start the show. Yeah?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, let's start this show. We are beginning the weekly recording of This Week in Science in 3, 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 997, recorded on Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. Science learning made easy. Hey, everybody. I am Dr. Kiki, and tonight we will fill your head with rocks, tension, and learning. But first,
disclaimer. Science is magic. Now, you may not believe in magic, think that it's just a trick or an illusion, but science is magic. Magic is based on fooling the audience into a misbelief by sleight of hand or misdirection, a pre-planned switcheroo. In magic, the outcome seems impossible, defying gravity, time, or space, until you learn how the trick is done. And then it just all kind of makes sense. Unbelievable tricks of all sorts have been accomplished by science. The modern world would seem entirely magical and unbelievable to someone living just a half century ago. Science is magic in that as soon as you learn the methods behind it, you remove the misdirection from your mind and can see clearly that the seemingly impossible outcomes were all in your head. Now for our next trick, we will make the next 90 minutes disappear with This Week in Science coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I wanna learn everything, I wanna fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I wanna know what's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science. What's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science.
Good science to you, Kiki.
And a good science to you too, Justin, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science, and a very, very happy birthday to you, Mr. Jackson Fly.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was
How'd this-
yesterday, but thank you.
Well,
No
it's
way.
today in this part of the world, so
But I
it
am from the
seems
future.
it seems appropriate. You're waking up on Blair's birthday, so
Oh, well, happy birthday, Blair.
happy birthday to Blair tomorrow for me, today for you. Oh my goodness, time zones are just fantastic. And this week on How the Science World Turns. We are bringing lots of science news to you. Hopefully, I have a bunch of things that I found interesting that I wanted to bring this week, including quantum computing progress, symbiotic passengers, tiny space rocks, learning by doing nothing, and your brain on aging. Or maybe it's mine. What do you have for us, Justin?
I have good news for coffee addicts regarding aging.
Great.
Maybe. Removing microplastics. Kind of a cool story there. And I'll finish the show with two completely contradictory stories involving the Hubble tension, TWIS, and the same types of stars studied that were completely contradictory findings that were published on the same day by people who are no slouches when it comes to cosmology and physics.
Right.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to all sorts of tension during this show, and I'm hoping that we'll learn all about it. We might just put it right in your head without you even knowing. Just might just happen like that. I might be priming you for a study that we're going to be talking about later also. Oh my goodness. But before we jump into the show, do want to remember? No, I do remember. I want to remind you that if you need to find out information about This Week in Science, head on over to twis.org. That's where we keep all of our episodes, show notes with information about the show, links to subscribing, and also links to our Patreon and Zazzle stores. You can also find us online on social media under @TWIS Science is usually our social handle, or just look for This Week in Science every place that great science talk showy things are found. Just look for us on the internet. Maybe not with one of those artificial search engines because they're not really good at their job anymore. But I don't know.
I don't know what is an artificial search engine. What's the
It's all the
organic
search
version?
engines. They're not organic anymore. They're black boxes full of algorithms that nobody knows how they use, and none of them work anymore because they're all supposed to be like, we do this for you, and we're trying to sell you things, and we need eyeballs and advertising. So nothing actually works anymore. And I am not jaded about the internet anymore at all. All right. But speaking of the internet, are we ready to jump into the science?
Can I just pause for a second?
Mm-mm.
Like, I haven't been a whole lot of places in the world, but I do recall, like, when we visited New York, every time you got off a subway that was somewhat near a tourist attraction, there were throngs of people like, hey, buddy, you want to see the Statue of Liberty? Hey, do you want to go to the hey, this is what the internet is now. When you click into it, it's like, hey, over here, hey, you, hey, buddy,
Yeah.
hey, do you got the depression? Hey, buddy, do you need a job? Hey, my friend, can I ask you, do you have an entrepreneurial spirit? Like,
No,
like,
don't talk to me and don't touch me.
Gosh. The internet has become like so you can't make eye contact anymore when you're browsing. You have to just walk past all of the links, attempting to go to the place that you intended to when you logged on.
Yeah.
So
Don't get slipped up. Don't go down a rabbit hole. Don't end up someplace browsing for 3 hours that you didn't mean to go.
How did
the
this
attention
type of like
economy.
attention grabbing hook advertising become the only thing that is the internet is being used?
Money, 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 money.
Utterly ridiculous.
Money,
Anyway.
money. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I have no idea. I'm a scientist. I'm not going to pretend to know the answers to these questions. But I am going to tell you now about the future of quantum technology. So this last week, researchers out of Google's quantum computing team released a paper out of Nature, and this was published quantum error correction below the surface code threshold. Quantum error correction below the surface code threshold. Now, what does that mean? Well, according to the paper and their press materials and other bits and pieces I picked up online, Google is asserting that they have created a single logical qubit out of a larger number of hardware qubits. Now, these hardware qubits they've developed into basically their quantum computing chip. And in the design, the hardware qubit count is 105. The way this works is that you have one qubit, which is basically the physical structure that allows quantum properties to an atom to hold either a bit-like information, a 0 or a 1, or the superposition of those at the same time. Now, when one particular qubit goes, I'm going to do a thing, and if you look at me, I'm going to tell you what's in me. I'm superposed, but so I can be all of these things at the same time. But sometimes I'm going to make mistakes. And so historically, quantum computing and the chips that they use, the hardware, errors have been a huge problem. And we know that everything in computing, our silicon chips, everything gets smaller. And we've got this issue with Moore's law and, the ultimate miniaturization of a transistor and how actually small we can make our circuits. Well, it turns out in the case of the hardware that they are developing for the chip at Google, this Willow chip is the first of what they are saying is a new generation of chips in which they have increased the number of physical qubits that are included, the way and used efficiency to get at the structure of the chip. And in fact, it's not really that small. It's a fairly large physical chip compared to what we usually think of as computer chips these days. Now, the thing that's very interesting about this and the way that the logical qubit aspect of this works is that you have 105 of basically these processing units that are all connected to each other. And when they're acting in concert, all within their probabilities, they can remove the number of errors that the thing as a whole has. So each one of these chips is like one quantum logic bit, but like the 105 qubits that are the hardware that that the logic comes up from, those are like the physical aspects of it. So somebody was mentioning that the way that these qubits work, it's similar to how you have a classical computer with the electrical circuitry and the bits 0 or 1 binary Boolean code that classical computers are able to handle. You put a whole bunch of them together and you write software and you have operating systems that can abstract to have the different circuits and each of the bits in a chip all work together to be able to process information linearly. Now, with the quantum chip, those 105 qubits can all process their answer to a question. Oh, what number is this? What, yes or no, 0 or 1. But it's working at the quantum scale, which allows things to happen in parallel and the probability of answers to be found much more quickly than with classical computing. So the logic qubit is basically the abstraction of the physical properties that are occurring within the hardware itself.
Well, my question is, does this mean that if it's at 105 qubit processor now, that then it'll be a 210 and then a 420?
Possibly, yeah, because what they...
Or based growth system. Now there's a whole new numerical system of which version of computing is this.
So this is like old school big tube amplifier computing. Yeah. In terms of like analogies to computers, classical computings. This is where we are now in quantum computing, even though the person from Google who gave a report, Harmut Neven, who's the founder and lead of Google Quantum AI, he made a statement about Willow, this particular chip, and said that this performed a computational task. This particular computational task has been chosen kind of to make them look good. So the task itself is a bit controversial, as how telling as to how good this computer is. But it says it was a task that would take one of today's fastest supercomputers 10 septillion years in under 5 minutes.
Oh,
10 septillion years is longer than our universe is not even 10 to the 25th, I believe, 10 to the 24th. 10 to the 25th is 10 septillion years, and so 10 with 24 zeros, or 1 with 24 zeros following it. It's rapid. It's amazingly rapid computation. And now the big question, though, is that Neven jumped out in his conversation about Willow and said that the extraordinary performance lends credence to the notion that quantum computation occurs in many parallel universes, in line with the idea that we live in a multiverse. Yeah, so each qubit is quantum in that there can be a superposition, and it functions with its calculation based on probability. And so you can have this parallel calculation, like each qubit going, I'm 1, I'm 0, I'm 1, I'm 0 at the same time, as opposed to
totally makes sense. And that's why whenever you get the wrong answer, it's not the wrong answer. It's just the right answer in a different universe.
That's right. Yes.
Get it?
No.
Knock it off.
Anyway, yeah. So that in itself, that was Neven was, I think, speaking a little bit too broadly about what Willow actually.
Well, especially because the multiverse within physics as a concept is very fringe at the moment. Like, it's not.
And just because you can do this type of computation, that does not itself. I mean, that's the way the universe kind of. It's like, oop, pop into reality. Pop this. I see the world right now. This is all probability, wave functions collapsing. But anyway, speaking out of turn,
like magic until you figure out how the trick is.
And maybe one day the computational powers of quantum computing will lead us to understanding more about the universe we live in and lead us to understanding whether or not we do live in multiple parallel universes. But right now, that is not something that should be taken as any kind of fact. But what did happen is they did publish results that showed that the more qubits they use in Willow, the more they're able to reduce errors. And that allowed them to perform this calculation and maintain a stable logical qubit for 1 hour, which is a very, very long time in quantum computing time, considering that it did the calculation in 5 minutes. So there are some stories of some odd errors that do pop up that they can't explain at this point in time, which I find very fascinating. And maybe
The
as
right
more and
answer
more,
is for a different universe. That's all. That's all it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
It's totally makes sense if you understand all of the universes. Then,
yeah,
and there's
exactly.
no problem whatsoever.
But the big take home message is this is a good advancement in quantum computing, and um, the the title of the paper, error correction below the surface code threshold. And the surface code threshold is that ability to have stability and have all of those hardware qubits come together to um, correct errors and work together to give the logical qubit stability. And also the distance that they're using, they've been making their chips bigger, which is really interesting. They're not going down the miniaturization path right now because it's not working.
Then why bother?
Right,
Right?
exactly.
It's fine.
You're in a lab, you've got lots of
Yeah.
space, make your big chip. You can miniaturize it later when we all have like superconducting technology in our houses. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's complaining that their quantum computers are too big. It's not a thing yet. Stop.
Yeah.
You
But
have to
anyway,
invent the thing first.
yeah. They are inventing it. They are working on it, and it's interesting. It potentially, and this, keeps pushing IBM, Microsoft, and Google, and others who are working on this technology, keep pushing the technology forward. And someday, the operational computational power that they will have will enable code breaking. It will enable better weather prediction, higher accuracy. It's all the stuff that when it takes a lot of computer processing time to do one linear computation over lots and lots of time, or multiples in series as opposed to in parallel. We're going to be breaking down prime numbers. We're going to be,
Well, that's really
we're,
interesting.
yeah,
Here's what the really exciting part's going to be.
it's going to tell us what we're doing in the future. No, I don't know. That's not true.
Well, I had a suggestion, which is that once it gets to the point where we have social media on quantum computers, then we can start to chat with ourselves in other universes to see how it's going over there. Because I'm pretty sure that something happened and I ended up in the wrong one.
Well, one of the suggestions, and some people do speak
assume
back
that things are going
against
better
it,
in the other
is
universe.
that
Yeah,
not just parallel universe for conversations is, which I know you wrote a short science fiction novel about at one point in time, but the artificial intelligence, the machine learning algorithms, natural learning, language learning algorithms that are used for things like that chatbots and other things that we use to talk to, that potentially it could make those algorithms and the processing they run on faster and better. So maybe our machine learning technology will become better and more accurate with quantum computing. But that's still debatable because we haven't even gotten the quantum computers yet. So we have to get there first. And then we have to have the computer, and then we have to have the software. There's all sorts of stuff. Phases, everybody, phases. What did you want to talk about?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess you should look at the rundown and see what my first story here is today. So, I think I have to actually use the link from there to This is good news. Good news for coffee addicts.
Great. I don't want any bad news.
This is a Center for Neuroscience and Cell Biology researchers in Portugal have reported that regular moderate coffee consumption, which is around 3 cups a day, not only contributes to a longer life, but also enhances the quality of those additional years by reducing the risk of major age-related diseases and maintaining better overall health. So there it is.
How?
Fountain of youth.
What? How?
in
Why coffee? Why?
So it's a great question. So the answer is, I don't know.
Nobody knows.
Beyond the primary components, right? We have caffeine. It's water, caffeine. And then there's 1,000 or more potentially bioactive substances, most of which we lack a real understanding of their effects. So it makes it sort of difficult to break down individual components. So instead, what they did was they looked at cohorts of like 3 million people.
Oh, so big sizes.
Mortality data, health span indicators. With health span is not like lifespan. Health span is like how healthy you are.
For how long?
How long you can go disease free in life, even if you live much beyond it, which is sort of an interesting statistic because I was reading also, like America has the worst health span, unhealthy span of life, which means that we live longer than a lot of places, maybe places elsewhere, possibly, but that we are unhealthy for a longer portion of our lives. Anyway,
great.
We end up with the diseases in America. So
I'm gonna live longer, but be sick longer.
The additional amount of healthy lifespan that moderate coffee drinkers get compared to the rest of the people, 1.8 extra years of avoiding disease. So it will also moderate and
drinking coffee for my whole life.
Moderate and regular intake correlated with a 17% reduction in all-cause mortality. So also less likely to die if you drink coffee.
Good.
They say coffee drinking was correlated to lower functional deterioration in aging, mitigating things like memory loss, mood, and physical condition. Analysis also found consistent links between moderate coffee intake and reduced major causes of mortality, cardiovascular, cerebrovascular cancer, and respiratory-related deaths. And with a cohort of about 3 million participants, that seems like it has huge statistical significance. Here's an interesting thing, though, that that was noticed in the study. Study authors also have introduced the concept of caffeine as a normalizer. So basically, they're reframing it as a stabilizing agent for physiological systems, as opposed to the traditional way that coffee is defined as a psychostimulant. This would be a very radical redefinition of coffee. How it is thought of, it would move it into the realm of a routine health optimization intake thing. Like, this is what you do. Like, you do your exercise, you have your balanced diet, and you have your coffee, all to optimize health. Now,
was this funded by Starbucks or Pete's Coffee or any of
okay.
coffee?
So the research turns out was funded by the coffee industry. This particular one is through the Scientific Information on Coffee, which is a collective nonprofit. The Institute for Scientific Information on Coffee is completely funded by Illy Cafe, Pete's, Lavazza, Nestle, Paulig, and Chikbo, whatever it is. These are the 6 major European coffee manufacturer distributor companies. So here's the thing to keep in mind whenever you are getting statistics about coffee drinkers. the people who are in those studies drink coffee.
Yes.
People
What else?
with certain medical conditions or diseases that often carry higher mortality risks are also often not drinking coffee. This is going to be people with hypertension, heart arrhythmias, heart disease, anxiety, sleep issues, digestive disorders, host of metabolic disorders that preclude people from drinking coffee, that have an adverse reaction to the psychostimulant, not the normalizer, the psychostimulant that is coffee. So
I don't want to stay up until 3 a.m, maybe, or
all of the studies on coffee drinkers automatically exclude a huge portion of the population that is going to be subject to greater mortality risk. So just keep that in mind. Now, if on the other hand, you're starting your third cup of coffee, like I'm about to,
don't
and
worry
you're like,
about it.
should I be doing this at 5:30 in the morning? Study says it's good for you. It's making you normal. It's going to make you live longer and healthier. Keep that in your mind. It's fine. But if you don't drink coffee, know that it's all propaganda.
Yeah.
If you're not a coffee
find
drinker, you're not missing out on a health benefit at all. It doesn't exist.
I feel like this is definitely the reframing, like you mentioned. It's fascinating. And it comes at a time when people are maybe starting to reduce their coffee drinking a little. It's one of those extra costs. So, as inflation's going up and costs of things are increasing, like coffee and others, it becomes maybe more of something that some people stop drinking as much of. Also, we're looking at climate change and the shifting of the sourcing of coffee. So I think I don't know, it's interesting. It's like the sugar industry or the fossil fuels industry. They're getting ahead of the game.
So
That
you
said,
mentioned a couple of things really important. One is that there is also a bias towards, if you're drinking 3 cups of coffee a day, you're either fully employed at the time because you're getting your coffee for free at work, or you're spending a bunch of money on coffee, right? So there's also a socioeconomic aspect to people who are going to be included in that. And then the other thing is the coffee good news machinery has been going on for a long time. Now, the outfit
women can drink it. Pregnant women can drink it, apparently. It's fine. And, if you're drinking regular amounts of coffee, these median amounts, it's not bad for you as far as the evidence has shown.
But the evidence has shown, right? So this is the Institute for Scientific Information on Coffee.
Chronically.
Often collaborates with reputable institutions. They maintain
like the
research.
Industry.
That their research is credible. They have, but if you look through, you're going to see positive news about coffee propagated constantly. And there's a part of me that wonders, like, why do they have a lobby? Do you know what the beverage that people drink? There's one beverage, only one beverage that people are drinking more than coffee. Do you know what it is?
Tea.
Water. Just the water. That's the only. Coffee ranks below water. I don't know if they're trying to just replace water completely now. You don't need it. We're gonna put
that would not be good for people, seeing as it's a diuretic. Not healthy. Yeah, necessary as healthy as water over time. I mean, you still get the water, but
Yeah. So anyway,
meanwhile,
I don't even know why they need a lobby at this point. I don't know.
Because coffee lobby sounds really fun to say.
Well, but the thing that jumps into my very skeptical, suspicious mind is why do you need to try to reframe coffee as a health thing? Why do you have a lobby that's putting out positive coffee news? And this is it's like a researcher at this, right, from a reputable institution, and then the rest is coffee lobby. Why do you need this? Unless there's something really bad about coffee that they're not telling us.
Oh,
We got to
now
get
we need
way out ahead
now
of
we
this
need this science, the
so
replication.
that when the bad news comes,
Mhm. We need the machinery to get into play. What's
you're
happening?
number 2 in beverages number 2 behind water, and then it's like a big drop
That's
off
amazing.
behind
That is
number 3.
amazing.
Why do you
I don't
need
know
to
if I
keep
want to
pushing?
know.
Anyway, coffee. Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. Coffee. It's fine. You're a great marketer.
Just
That's
coffee.
really you're
It's just
helping.
coffee.
That's good.
If you like coffee, drink coffee. But forget, like, you're not going to cure disease with coffee drinking. It's just not how it works.
But what about being able to do cool new things because you have another symbiotic organelle that comes from a little bacteria who's like, I want to live with you, and decides to live with you. I mean, inside you, and you're just a cell, or you're a bacteria yourself, and suddenly you can do things like nitrogen fixation, or you can maybe respire oxygen all of a sudden. Like, that'd be cool. Kind of like what our mitochondria
Been there,
did
done
for
that.
us, and ended up being what is in marketing speak, known as the powerhouse of the cell. I mean, it's got its own tagline, slogan. Mitochondria, once upon a time, were a little symbiont. They were a little organism that was like, I'm tagging along with this guy. And then this guy engulfed the little guy, and the little guy's like, yeah, that's cool. And then I'm going to be here, and you're going to feed me too. Okay, that's cool. Ooh, now I'm just going to get rid of some of my stuff because, I'm moving in. So I don't think I need like all the stuff for my 3-bedroom apartment anymore. So I'm going to get rid of all this other stuff. Maybe keep, like my books, because I really like those books that I read in college because they really give me meaning and identity. I'll keep those. So, mitochondria moved in, and some researchers back in 2021, they went around, or they reported on their search to find out if, hey, maybe there are other symbionts who are on the way to becoming organelles like mitochondria. And so they found, these are a group from the Max Planck Institute for Marine Microbiology in Germany. They had found a bacterium that lives inside of a unicellular eukaryote and actually gives it energy, just like mitochondria. So it was very interesting because these little ciliates, these unicellular eukaryotes, they live in anaerobic conditions and usually respire using nitrate instead of oxygen. And it was the endosymbiont that allowed them to use nitrate. They wouldn't have been able to survive in those conditions otherwise, or at least not nearly as well. Not as they wouldn't have had as much of a health span, I guess you could say, or they wouldn't have
Wait a
been
sec.
wouldn't have thrived as much.
Would this
What?
almost qualify as a new form of life then?
Well, not so.
Complex
Yeah,
life?
yeah.
Because
But no, it's kind of like the way that this is the process of merging, of how this is their research. These researchers are starting to find these little places in the water where little tiny organisms end up helping other organisms, and then they merge together, and the little tiny ones eventually they can't leave. And so these researchers went to look for more signatures of this symbiont in all kinds of environmental samples. They looked at about 1,000 different data sets to be able to see if this symbiont showed up other places, and they found them on every continent. So this symbiont that's inside of the unicellular eukaryote, it actually is inside of all sorts of different eukaryotes. It's not just inside of one. They learned they can live in lakes, other freshwater habitats, in groundwater, in wastewater, and they found some more close relatives. They identified 4 new species of symbionts, 2 of which constituted a whole new genus. And so they've named this new genus Azeoceus, or nitrogen associate. Azosocius, Azosocius, nitrogen associate. And the original symbiont was named Azoamicus, which is nitrogen friend. So anyway, they have found these 4 new species. They've also found that these symbionts can do new things, like allow them to respire oxygen in addition to nitrogen. And so this is why what they say is that it can explain why they can find these symbionts in environments that are fully or partially toxic. So these symbionts are found all over the place. They're also found in association with other organisms. They are basically they've used genetics to be able to look at this global distribution of these little symbionts that live inside of other little unicellular organisms and help them to live all over the place, even toxic waste. It's cool.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the fact that these Azoamicacea, they're all over the world, which is pretty awesome. They're not just in Germany. They're widespread. The questions that they can start asking, though, are, I think, very fascinating, because this starts getting at their evolution and how beneficial symbioses get started, and then how they evolve, and how these impact, especially the ones involved in nitrogen respiration, how they impact the nitrogen cycles of their habitats. Can they remove nitrogen oxides? Can they produce, how much of greenhouse gases do they produce? Understanding how all of these pieces of the environmental puzzles work can help us answer a lot of bigger questions that exist on the global scale. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Do you want to filter that a little bit now?
Yeah. Oh, see, I keep losing my stories today.
Why?
Here we go. I don't know. So this is I don't know if it's I even need to give the background to the study, but microplastics. They are circulating in water, in soil, in human tissue. They're collecting
in your blood.
In the blood, in the body tissues. It turns out it's a big, massive pollution problem happening at a micro scale. And that waste is becoming, a thing that people are thinking about taking care of. As soon as we get around to like global warming, we'll also take on this issue. But this is out of Wuhan University, or Wuhan University led research. They're reporting the development of basically a new kind of foam that they've designed. It's described as a revivable, self-assembled, supramolecular biomass fibrous framework. It's a foam filter.
I know. I was going to say that's a lot of words for a foam filter. Okay.
Yeah. But it has. So they tested this, and they found that it has a removal efficiency of initially of up to 98, maybe even 99.9% from water samples. And then once it goes through multiple cycles, it drops a little bit, 95 to 98% removal. Extremely high efficiency. What is pretty wild about this is that it is, because of the diversity of particle sizes and chemical makeups of microplastics, a one-size-fit-all has been like really difficult to come up with. In their testing, they found that it's working through this is collecting the microplastics through multiple mechanisms. There's physical interception where the particle just gets stuck within the foam. There's electrostatical attractions. There are multiple intermolecular interactions. There's with hydrogen bonding and van der Waals forces. So what they were able to do is they found an adsorption, which is when you collect things. Efficiency remained high across a range of microplastic types and sizes from 100 nanometer polystyrene microspheres down to 3 micron secondary microplastics. So it's quite a range. The material itself,
range. Yeah, it's unusual. Yeah,
is apparently very cheap to manufacture. They say it's organically recyclable or through right. The thing that is unclear is that even if it is recyclable in organic solvents, how do you get the microplastics out in that process? Like that, is that a whole extra step where you recombine the plastics to get them out?
well, they all end up in the filter, right? And then you have to wash them out of the filter if you want to reuse the filter, or they
Right.
just become a big piece of landfill. That's
Well, the thing is, you would
Yeah.
eventually dissolve the filter and then make a new filter out of that material. But where would the plastic go? Anyway, that's a whole other problem, right? But this is potentially cheap enough to manufacture that you could see something like this being put into, say, a water treatment plant or a water filtration plant before drinking, or certainly one after, to filter out microplastics from wastewater. These are some of the ways that this could be addressed, but it will take extremely inexpensive materials on a large scale. And with the effectiveness of this one, and just not any real super complicated materials involved, we might have found a method. Anyway, again, as soon as we're done with the global warming problem, we're going to get right on the what's that? Air pollution. Oh, we all go ozone, air pollution. Yeah, well, that's going to be. Is that how we're going to do global warming?
I do wonder though if it's not just if it's microplastic, but I mean, if there's other stuff that these filters, or if these filters could grab onto as well, or because of their specificity, if they can be put in series with other filters, if it will just, make our filtration of water that much better.
Yeah. So they used it in regular water, pond water, stream water. They used a couple different types of water over the course of the experiment. But what they found is there is some bacterial collection and some other things that are getting filtered in there, but it does not hinder its effect on the microplastics, which is the main target there. It's pretty clever material. I would love to see something like this scaled up very soon, because of course this is a ongoing problem, but it's not one that I think, I haven't heard about it in the news a whole lot.
I just read news. I'm always reading this stuff, so it seems like I'm always reading about it, but I realize that I am not the average news consumer. I'm probably actively looking for stuff like this. So John Hogan in the chat is asking if there are bacteria that are eating microplastics now. And yes, there are microplastic eating bacteria, but it's also another question of, how do you make sure that you can implement them and get them to work efficiently? The same thing, we've had bacteria who can eat radiation and nuclear waste for many years. The bacteria that it can exist in the toxic sludge, thanks to their endosymbionts. But how do they do what they do? How do we get enough of them to get the job done well, and is it efficient, cost effective, etc. And that's going to be the same question for this kind of filter. Everything we talk about on the show and all of the studies, they're all in part of that process of developing the technologies that will be used in the future. And some of them are going to be Betamax, and they're not going to work, or they're going to work great, and then they won't be popular.
And and here's the problem with it. It's the same problem with global warming as you're going to find with microplastics. You're going to also find in things that coffee can't cure, right?
Right.
Which is that all of the things that contribute to the problem make money.
Mm-hmm.
The job of cleaning up the problems that are created don't have a income source, right? Like there's no huge profit. There's no profit in cleaning up the mess.
Unless we end up in such a resource restricted situation, or there are local regional situations where water is restrictive. And so you need to have these technologies. So when you're cleaning water for people to drink so they can live there, that becomes something people pay for, right? Your water supply is something you pay for, and that is going to work. If you can remove metals, trace metals from water, and take those metals and isolate them out and then sell those metals are then resources that can potentially be used if you can do it efficiently, cost effectively, and get a good price for them, right? Of course. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but really when we're looking at resource restriction, that's where that's the inflection point for these things being usable. At least that's what I feel. But what about the universe? The universe isn't limited. It's for all intents and purposes. It's huge. It's almost infinite as far as our puny human brains can manage. But if we're looking far away at things like astronomers do, sometimes things fly in front of your telescope and you're like, that wasn't a fly. Oh, it was an asteroid. What's that out there? And asteroids apparently.
Hang on, we still have the. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize a bajillion times. We still had the image up from the last story. It's fine because I don't want people to get confused. It's like that looks like a lake.
Especially during the audio podcast. I mean,
this is true. I sometimes forget that this isn't the actual show.
It is the actual show. Everybody here is here for the show. All right. So asteroids, big ones can be scary. We worry about dinosaur killers, right? Little ones or littler
not so much
ones.
Anymore.
Little ones, not such a big deal, right? We don't worry about the dinosaur killers. Maybe the people killers. Yeah.
The people killer ones that we now focus on the most.
Those are the ones. The small ones, they go, and they're not a big deal. And, whatever. They come by our atmosphere. They go by the planet, whatever. No big deal. Those tens of meters size, Tunguska size asteroids, they're not devastating. They can take out a good area when they implode in the air. They can have, significant impacts from in Tunguska. They knocked trees down, and it was, there's sonic booms, and there's the sound wake, and they can do stuff, but it's not as big of a deal as the big ones that could, kill life on the planet as we know it. So we have located most of the asteroids that are on the planet killer scale that we know of. We're doing our best to keep an eye out for the big ones in our solar system. And the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is full of big ones, but then also lots and lots of little ones. And it's not, it's not like the rings of Saturn. It's not like this very visible ring that we're like, look at that. things are very spread out because space is big and our solar system is big compared to our little puny humanness. But when astronomers are looking out at at galaxies, at stars, at things far away, sometimes those little asteroids go phew, just like a Starlink satellite in front of your telescope. They come through and they get in the way of the image. And astronomers are always like, you messed up our data collection. We got to clean the noise out of our image, these little things getting in the way. And so researchers who originally they discovered the TRAPPIST-1 system, they were looking at, they were using telescopes to be able to look far, far away from Earth, to be able to look into exoplanet systems, right? To see like, oh, are there other planets around other stars? And they're looking far, far away. Asteroids getting in their way all the time. And they went, wait a minute. What if we shifted our focus and instead of looking at the data of the far away, we looked at the data of the close-up stuff? Could we actually start to see those little tiny asteroids that we haven't really picked up because they're too small to usually find, but they just accidentally get in the way of our view every once in a while? And so they went back to a bunch of data from their TRAPPIST explorations, and they looked at they used the transiting planets and Planetesimal Small Telescope in Chile, and some another from let's see, and they used data from that, and they used data from the Speculus Search for Habitable Planets Eclipsing Ultra Cool Stars survey. This is a system of ground-based telescopes taking images of a star over time. And they used data from a telescope in Antarctica that's also been looking outward. And they used time-based algorithms. They did a whole bunch of shifting of the data, sifting of the data, and they found little tiny 10-meter asteroids in the asteroid belt. So we now have, they originally had like 10,000 images. They had thousands and thousands of images, and they have now found a way to probe this population of small asteroids in the asteroid belt that would otherwise not be visible because we're not looking at the right place at the right time for long enough most of the time. And usually astronomers just think they're little bugs getting in the way of their view. So these MIT professors have now been able to detect these near-Earth objects down to 10 meters in size. They use JWST to be able to look at these things too. And this is actually really important for planetary defense.
Yeah.
And also for resources in space.
Resources in space. But
right.
10 meters, I don't know. Maybe I just don't understand how big a really big or how little. 10 meters seems like that still seems pretty big. I mean, maybe seeing it with a telescope is very difficult, of course, far away things. But gosh, there's a lot of material out there.
There is a lot of material out there. And so these, what they call decameter asteroids that are tens of meters across. The Tunguska asteroid was a decameter asteroid, but it was probably, more than the 10 meters. But this is now they're like the minimum size. Nobody's been able to see these small asteroids really before within the main asteroid belt. And so now to be able to, before it was only if they were like a kilometer in diameter. And so now it's as small as 10 meters, which is a significant improvement in our ability to be able to discern the size, the location of this whole population of little bits of rubble between Mars and Jupiter in the asteroid belt, which we haven't really been able to map out cleanly. But it also, understanding it and seeing these, we can also start to look at much more about their velocity, be able to really map where they came from, what kind of impacts might have might have birthed them. They have ideas of different populations of groups of rocks in the asteroid belt, but this will give a lot more information to some of the smaller members of that population.
Very cool.
And also we can keep track of them for better monitoring of like, oh, look, that one's coming at our planet right now. And don't go stand outside. Maybe go down in your basement for a minute.
So like that whole ending of Don't Look Up, that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're like, oh no, there's an asteroid coming. Oh, but wait, it's full of precious materials. We're worth billion, trillion, zillion dollars. Let's bring it to the Earth. And then, of course, that fails in a way that still destroys the planet. I feel like that's gonna happen.
Possibly. I don't know. I mean,
once they grab one of these things and they're like, oh, there's a value to mine it. It's like,
we're gonna drag it to the moon, and we're gonna have it near the moon.
That doesn't feel as
wait a minute.
Or hey, maybe there's enough material out there. Just go out and make your own planet one day. Go be a planet pioneer. Forget terraforming. That's the old way to do stuff. Mars is over capacity. Mars is full. Housing prices on Mars are through the roof. Let's go out a little further. Let's make our own planet. Perfect.
Now you too, for 120 billion 29 99 99 99, you too can have your own asteroid ant farm. Watch the people dig tunnels. Watch the robots dig. Where do they put the material? What will they do with it? Look and see how they feed their colony. Little Jimmy's asteroid ant farm. Call today. Nice. This is This Week in Science. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. And I do hope that you decide to forego the asteroid ant farm in favor of supporting TWIS these holidays. You can head over to TWIS.org and click on our Zazzle link, and that'll take you over to our store where you can find all sorts of TWIS merchandise, hats, cups, mugs, little cool things that will make you happy. Previous year's calendars had a bunch of art, like this art and that art. There's a lot of art, birds, animals, various things that Blair created for our calendars that cover pillows and shower curtains and doormats and shirts and all sorts of products. So you can find some of that art on products in our Zazzle store, and they might make you very happy if you want to get yourself a holiday gift, a gift for someone else, that person who in your life who loves TWIS. Head over to TWIS.org, click on that Zazzle link, and you'll be able to find products that will help our show into another year. Also, you can go to TWIS.org and find our Patreon links. Patreon is the community that we use for supporting the platform that we use for our ongoing support of the show. $10 and more per month. You can even do annual subscriptions if that works better for you. $10 and more per month, and we'll thank you by name at the end of the show. There's also t-shirts and stickers and other things that are gifts for people who are supporters over on Patreon. We thank you so much for your support and really can't do it without you, especially when you tell somebody else about TWIS. Get them to subscribe today. All right, we're going to come back with some more This Week in Science. I have got a whole bunch of stuff. I actually came back early because, excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold. I came back a little bit too early as Justin was not back yet from his mid-show break. His fourth cup of coffee is here.
So I can live longer and be stronger and faster. Increase my thinking power.
Just like the bananic woman and the $6
The
man.
bananic woman.
All right, Justin, do you have some tension for us?
Oh my goodness, do I ever? Okay, so astronomers have long been debating the universe's expansion rate. And this is kind of known. So the expansion rate is the Hubble constant, right? This is based on cosmic background radiation and how we think the universe formed. And these measurements, we have the Hubble constant is the rate at the expansion of the universe. But due to some conflicting measurements that have been discovered over time, there's discrepancies in that are referred to as the Hubble tension. Measurements of the early universe indicate we're expanding at, say 68 kilometers per second per megaparsec, which isn't that much, except that the universe is really old, so it's been going on for a long time. Measurements of galaxies closer show an expansion rate around 72 kilometers per second per megaparsec, and so there's a difference. And basically what it would indicate is that the universe is not only expanding, but the rate at which it's expanding is accelerating, a dynamically expanding universe, which creates problems because that doesn't fit our standard model of physics. Okay.
Right.
We don't know
Everything's
why.
supposed to be homogeneous, not heterogeneous, right? Yeah.
We don't know why there is this dynamic thing, or if it exists. Hence, it's called the tension in cosmology, the Hubble tension. Now, a few months back, using data from NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, this was analyzed by University of Chicago cosmologist Wendy Friedman, who is a prominent cosmologist, certainly. And her team indicated that the Hubble tension, maybe it doesn't actually exist after all.
Oh,
With the data from NASA's James Webb Telescope, they measured the Hubble constant, and their findings indicate a value of 70 kilometers per second per megaparsec, which aligns kind of with both of the major methods previously used to measure the constant, and with overlapping error confidence range that kind of fits in the middle of both, right? So according to them, the Hubble may not require new physics or modifications to our current cosmological models, as their findings values essentially splits the difference. And they used 3 different independent methods of calculating. This is actually quoting. Let me go back. Let me quote Wendy Friedman from a news story that was featured as a news feature in Nature on December 9th. News feature in Nature, December 9th, this is published. And quoting Wendy Friedman, based on these new JWST data and using 3 independent methods, we did not find strong evidence for a Hubble tension. To the contrary, it looks like our standard cosmological model for explaining the evolution of the universe is holding up. One of the, I think, colleagues or a side paper to this put it a little bit more bluntly and basically said that the obsession currently by some with the Hubble tension is basically looks like groupthink. That basically saying
it's like people keep saying the same things.
Yeah. You're just doing like this, basically saying, look, we've looked at the data. So that's great news. There is no Hubble tension. Cosmological model has been preserved. So interestingly, news story. This is a new story now. Published December 9th, which is the same day as the news article for the other one. Published December 9th in the Astrophysical Journal. 2 years of data from NASA's James Webb Telescope have validated earlier measurements made by Hubble Space Telescope. Both telescopes indicate that the universe's expansion rate is approximately 8% faster than what is expected on based on the existing models of the cosmos. Astrophysicist Adam Rees, a Nobel laureate in the field, also no slouch, right? When it comes to cosmic matters, led a team at Johns Hopkins University. They looked at the 2 years of data and reaffirmed the previous findings from Hubble telescope that the universe is expanding faster than what current models had predicted. Their measurements of the Hubble constant are at about 73 kilometers per second per megaparsec, reinforcing the existence of the Hubble tension and suggesting that there may be unknown factors related to dark energy or dark matter influencing the universe's expansion. Rees and his colleagues employed 3 different methods also to measure distances to galaxies using Cepheid variable stars, which is actually also what was used in the Wendy Friedman research. These methods aim to ensure the reliability of the results and rule out potential instrument errors, which is also the same rationale that the other group used. Their findings, of course, Hubble constant measured around 73 kilometers per second per megaparsec, 8% higher than the predicted value of the standard cosmological model. Quoting Adam Rees, "Yes, it appears there is something missing in our understanding of the universe. Our understanding of the universe contains a lot of ignorance about 2 elements, dark matter and dark energy. These make up 96% of the universe, so this is no small matter." And then quoting Xiang Li, who's also a researcher on the team, "The Webb results can be interpreted to suggest there may be a need to revise our model of the universe, although it is very difficult to pinpoint what this is at the moment." So, to recap, Friedman's team found Hubble constant value that aligns closely with measurements from the cosmic magnetic background in the cold dark matter, lambda cold dark matter model, suggesting that the Hubble tension might be resolved without requiring any new physics. Rees's team confirmed the higher Hubble constant value, reinforcing the existence of the Hubble tension, suggesting potential gaps in our understanding.
Which would need new
Both
physics.
Both used JWIST and both used data from the same type of stars. So that's where we're at, folks.
I love this kind of stuff though, because it's different directions, right? They're using the same data, they're using the same instrument, but they're looking at them a little differently. Their calculations are different, their perspective is different, and this is where the tension in the tension is that's the thing that keeps us wanting to watch the story, right? We want to know how it's going to come out. Are they going to talk to each other? Are they going to figure out how they are really different and where the holes in their understanding are because of this?
It's so intriguing to me that
it's fascinating
that depending on who's looking at the universe, they're getting a completely different answer.
Rod Hagland in the chat room says they do a phenomenal job with their calculations, but their 3 methods each contain estimated values. They tend to underplay the variability. So, assumptions and estimations are, always I would say those are probably the first places to look for places where you're getting something wrong.
Yeah, and there was a very interesting article I read a little while ago that was pointing out something to do with the alignment of a galaxy that is being viewed alters its redshift to a degree that is kind of confounding, which is why they even kind of point, this kind of comes up in at least one of these studies. I think it was the Friedman one, where some of the stars within a galaxy even were putting out a very different number than those surrounding, or maybe it was the galaxy next to it was putting out. Like, there's there's certainly a disparity.
Yes.
These when you're saying like you were saying, there's underplaying the variability. Yeah, but then at some point you have to say, kind of like what quantum physicists have had to do, and just say, no, that probability is reality. The variability that you're seeing in the cosmos might be reality, meaning the whole concept of a expansion everywhere in a uniform thing might also not be completely correct. Like, you have to start to...
Right. Absolutely. But this is the way science works, right? Science doesn't prove things. Science disproves them. So you have to go through all your hypotheses, the alternative hypotheses. How are we looking at it wrong? What data have we not gotten yet? Where are our assumptions wrong? Go figure it out. And until we are absolutely sure that homogeneous expansion is not what's happening, the other ideas are, until we're absolutely sure that the universe isn't heterogeneous and our constant isn't actually a constant, we have to have these alternatives, and all of the hypotheses have to be investigated simultaneously if possible. And I think it's so cool that we're now like the different people looking at the same data from different directions, and maybe it'll get us someplace faster.
But I'm like very bothered by this. I'm very bothered.
That's because they're setting it up. We've got the introduction so far. Right now, we are setting up the tension in the story, right? So this is like the climbing part of our narrative arc. We haven't quite gotten to the climax yet. We'll get there eventually, but this is, the tension is building. Who will we still be around to see it played out?
Yeah, I think. Oh, hopefully. But like, there's something exciting when you are getting different results.
For sure.
That creates a certain amount of excitement around the thing, and interest about it, certainly.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that was the exciting thing before. You had old experimentation that was showing one thing. Now you've got the JWIST that's got this new ability to capture data with greater resolution. And now you're going to look at it again. You're going to get a more definitive answer. Mm-hmm. It's troubling to me that two different groups using that newer, higher resolution detection and comparing it to the old version have come up with different results. It does.
They're coming from different assumptions.
Consider that the assumptions are involved in the outcome, and that's a problem. And so one of these groups, and this is the hard reality, is one of these groups has to have allowed an assumption into their final data outcome. If not, then it's very difficult to explain why they have different results looking at the same issue. Unless, again, they're both right, and they just looked at slightly different data.
Different places, right? You're looking to the left. I was looking to the right.
Right. Like, I use this section of this type of Cepheid stars in the JWIST data, and the other group looked at a different set. And okay, then you have an answer that is worth then further probing why that is. But what if both assumptions wrong? Well, that's where I think anyway. Well, I'm not going to go off on my
and that is also possible.
Space-time thread.
Maybe neither of them are correct, right? This is where we're going to find out that there is some unknown character that has yet to be introduced to the story. Yeah. We'll find out. Yeah. I love it.
And I 100% I think that that's going to be the case. I think that I think that there's going to have to be some kind of big parameter shift, perspective change, that a paradigm shift even that is going to be required to resolve some of our understanding of dark energy and dark matter. And it might just be that things are much more complicated or much simpler than we currently are assuming. Either way, it's going to be really fascinating. And I hope that I love the fact that both the news report and the paper came out on the same day, because it was so fun to see
them pop out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that? Ooh, they're saying things. Yes.
And it's tough for me because I always 100% believe the last thing I read.
Uh-oh.
And so,
No.
And so even putting this together for the show, I believed one, and then I believed the other one, and I believed it as I went back and compared them. I kept
But it's
believing
not about
the other
belief. It's not about belief. It's about assessment and understanding and getting to the right answer. And we're not there yet. So it's not about belief. It's about learning more things. But you had to read. And do you remember the process of learning about these different ideas about the Hubble tension and the different ways that they're experimenting on it? Do you remember that process?
Do I remember the learning process?
Yeah, like what you did. Like what'd you do to?
Oh, for this? Oh yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. I was sitting around. I was actually. I'll tell you the story. I was on the train, and I was looking through, scrolling through my phone, reading, and I saw both headlines. And my thought was, some poor science news reporter just got it totally backwards. Because it look, you see the headline, moon confirmed, not made out of cheese. And then you see the other headline, moon confirmed, made out of cheese. And you're like, somebody got it wrong. Let's figure it out. And then it turns out there was two different sources. One was Nature, one was the Astrophysical Journal, and they were
different.
Both,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you remember that entire process, which is what most. I mean, when you're young, you don't necessarily remember the whole process of learning how to speak English or whatever language you speak. You don't necessarily remember the entire process of learning how to write, but I do remember all of those lined pages and having to copy letters and do. I remember some of that process and some skills.
Yeah.
Practicing clarinet, going to band practice, going to choir practice, learning about physics, learning about biology. I remember these things because they're a process. We use our senses. Our senses are integrated into our brain. We have neuronal processes that allow us to take information in and incorporate it into the way that we then approach the world to be able to appropriately respond to things. Researchers at the University of Rochester just published a paper in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in which it seems that they have hijacked that learning process and taught brains, not mouse brains, human brains, information without actually making a person go through the learning process. They put the brain through the process, not the person. So they, in their study, they put people into functional magnetic resonance imaging machines, and study participants viewed objects that were projected onto a mirror above their heads. So if you've ever been in an fMRI machine, very often for function, you look up and there's a little screen and the whole thing goes quack, 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 and it makes noises at you, and you have to lie there and stay still, but your brain is responding to things that you see above you as you're, and usually it's just response imaging, but in this place, the researchers used it as a form of biofeedback. So they had an abstract shape, and participants might have described it as a petal or a plant bulb or a butterfly, kind of a Rorschach kind of test. But that abstract shape moved, and it kind of pulsed on the mirror or the screen that the participants are looking at within that fMRI. And the participants were then asked to move that shape on the screen. And they were not told how to move the shape on their screen, but they were supposed to use their minds to move the shape on the screen. And if you've ever done any kind of like biofeedback gaming or anything like that, they have these headsets and you can learn how to, calm yourself and reduce your stress level, or play video game. Like, there are ways, and there's usually visual feedback or something. But in this case, eventually people learned how to chill that pulsing abstract art out and calm it down. So the researchers recorded what happened when they did that. And then eventually, they were able to understand what those neural responses and patterns looked like, and then nudged the brain into teaching them how to do teaching the brain of these people to move stuff without actually having them go through the process of the biofeedback. So the scientists ended up developing a method that had people learn new categories of visual objects. And it says in this press release, not by teaching them what the categories were, but by changing how their brains worked when they looked at the individual objects in the categories. The lead researcher on the study says, instead of teaching you something and measuring how your brain changes, we wrote a new category into your brain that would have appeared had you learned it yourself. Then we tested whether you saw the new category that we had inserted. Turns out you did. So the bottom line is this is the very basic early steps of being able to insert information matrix style into your brain. You too may be like Keanu Reeves and know Kung Fu. However, you probably won't go into a white construct and learn it. You'll just know it all of a sudden.
Hey, real quick pause.
Yeah.
Time out.
Oh no, what?
So I don't know if it's something that changed on your mic, but it's I'm hearing really heavy clipping, and I've reached out to the chat, and it's being heard there.
I didn't do anything. Oh no. Is it still, if I'm talking?
I'm hearing it very
now.
strongly. Some are saying they are only hearing some, or like bitrate errors or dropping or something like this. But there's like a clicking and clipping thing going on.
It's probably not there.
We probably need to go.
Maybe if I go out and come back, maybe it'll reset.
Maybe. Yeah, I think we might need to, just because that, or you're gonna have to go out and adjust the antenna, our broadcast antenna.
I don't have a broadcast antenna.
You don't have a broadcast antenna? How are we getting this message out to people if we don't have a broadcast antenna?
Am I still clipping? Clip. Yeah. Okay. Hold on.
But some people are saying they're not hearing any clipping.
I know.
That you sound
I didn't
fine,
change anything.
Because to me, I'm hearing it consistently. So strange. How could it be that some people are hearing
No, I didn't drink any bird milk. What's the thing?
I think it's just pigeons landed on the antenna. It just needs to get the pigeons off the antenna, and we'll be good.
No, my speed is fine. So it's not speed. It's
something
something else.
So weird. Some people are hearing it and some people are not. Why would that be? That makes no sense to me.
It's quantum clipping. Yes, Kevin, unique. Okay,
it depends on what universe you're listening to the show from. That's what it is.
Yeah. I haven't moved anything. That's so weird. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, Kira's saying totally normal. David Nevin, not hearing any clipping. Zombie Tom Hanks, Justin sounds fine. Kiki is clippy. Yeah, so strange. Well,
it's clippy, but not like a robot. So it's not like
it's not like robot, but
weird
it's like
robot
every
stuff.
time you stop saying a word, there's a click.
Weird. Clippy.
Oh, wait,
Robot.
maybe it's not. No, it stopped.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
there it
9,
is. Now
10,
it's
11, 12.
It's back.
It's backed.
Yeah.
Did it come back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it was there all along.
It was. I don't know what to do.
So where'd you go? So here's the thing, Kiki. I don't know if it's just because it's the live feed that some people are hearing it and some aren't. Because if some people aren't hearing it, I think maybe the audio is fine. And it's some sort of weird compression-y thing that's happening.
I can also go away and come back.
Yeah, let's do that. Only because
and
people
I
are
can
saying
turn it down a little bit. I'll just turn my audio down very slightly. 1, 2, 3, 4. And maybe I'll move that out.
Yeah, it's not a mechanical clickety thing. It's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, it's definitely in the
still in there
audio realm. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna be right back.
Yeah. Okay, now that Kiki's gone, now we can talk about what's really going on. The thing that Kiki probably didn't want to tell you about. It's this huge thing is going on in science right now. Everybody's talking about it, but only behind the scenes. They don't want anyone else to know. We have discovered and that's why we have to act very quickly, because we only have a limited amount of time. But so hopefully all of you will take that advice and prepare yourself for what is to come. Oh wait,
what are you saying?
What?
Did it work at all? Did reset? Did leaving?
Oh my goodness, it totally did. You are
okay.
Crystal clear, Queen Isabel.
It is some kind of weird internet issue. I can't explain it. Dun dun. Anyway, I thought the last story was very interesting, but apparently my clippiness, like old Microsoft Clippy, was never dying and never ending and more interesting than researchers. Should I present any of the last story over again?
Yeah, go for it.
Should we?
Yeah,
I mean, go for it.
Go for it as in 3, 2, 1.
The whole thing.
So I'm kind of curious. We may have to sacrifice the study if you don't want to redo it.
No,
but,
I would.
But because some people didn't hear it, I'm now questioning whether the recorded version has that at all.
Oh yeah, I'd like to do. Yeah, no, probably. You know, I don't know.
It may be a compression broadcasty thing.
I don't know.
And not in the recording. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, coming back to the story over again. Researchers from the University of Rochester have developed a new way to insert information into your brain. The bottom line is they took participants who volunteered, put them in an fMRI machine, showed them images on a mirror that that the participants were able to look at, and what was on the mirror were these weird abstract images that the participants were like, that looks like a butterfly, that looks like a petal, it was a Rorschach test of abstract art. but they were pulsing. The images on the mirror were pulsating, and the researchers used biofeedback with the fMRI machines recording neural activity within the brain. They used biofeedback to measure the brains of the people, the neural responses, and they said, hey, get that pulsing to stop. And they didn't tell the people in the study how to get the pulsing to stop. They didn't tell them what to do. They just measured the brain and the mental state that shaped the oscillation. And eventually people got the shapes to stop pulsing. But meanwhile, the researchers were able to take what they understood of people identifying these shapes, seeing them, using their brains to figure out how to stop them from pulsing, and we're able to insert information into the brains, a new shape category that was then able to allow other information to be implanted in the brain. So using neurostimulation, the researchers got people to learn things without learning it in the standard way. They learned things, their brain learned things without them learning it. So in the future, people would be able to respond to these new shapes, would be able to do certain things, but not remember how they learned it, where they learned it, why they know it. Of course, they're going to say, yeah, I was in this weird study in an fMRI machine, and now I know this weird petal butterfly hybrid shape thing. But in the future, the idea is that researchers would be able to utilize this method to be able to help people in treatments for psychological disorders, depression, visual agnosias, where people can't recognize everyday items, autism. They think that this kind of method might play a role in clinical treatment to modify brain patterns of patients to look more similar to brain patterns found in the neurotypical population. So anyway, it's fascinating that by using neurofeedback, they were able to get brains to create a whole new category that could change the people's behavior. And this is kind of a beginning of, I don't know, what I think of as like matrix-like learning. Instead of knowing Kung Fu, you now know a new shape. But the eventual use of this
Big difference.
clinical treatment to make neurodivergent brains more neurotypical, it seems like a sanitization. But that's at the extreme end of how it could potentially be used someday. Yep. Yeah, Kestrel is saying this sort of thing is used in ADHD. They get kids to play a game and the controls become more responsive with the correct brain responses. Yeah, it's similar, but this is, that's the controls, the biofeedback is occurring, but that is usually to actually help the person to figure out how to control their reactions and how their brain is working. And it's actually, it's a process that people are involved in. You're learning how to calm your brain. You're learning how to regulate your emotions. You're learning how to, do various things because of the games and the biofeedback that occurs. But in this particular case, they inserted new concepts
So
into people's noetic awareness. But
this sounds a lot like subliminal, like
Yeah, it is subliminal.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. I think you'd be right there.
So
But
subliminal concept insertion.
Yes. Instead of priming, it's new concepts.
Yeah. I mean,
New things.
a lot of ways that this can operate.
Mm-hmm.
In a very sort of Brave New World-ish sort of a way, right?
Yeah.
Conditioning responses to things that then are reinforced with an advertising we can get to something else.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly. So, again, this is going to be completely spring loaded into the direction of whoever is controlling the technology.
Absolutely.
So,
and of course, right
great
now,
or terrible, depending on who's at the controls.
Absolutely. As you get older, you might also think to yourself, who is at the controls? As we get older, we have a tendency to forget things, our brains slow down. And when I first started graduate school, you were born with all the neurons that you were ever going to have. But evidence now suggests that we do grow new brain cells throughout our adult life. We don't grow as many of them as we get older. And that may be and probably is part of what contributes to cognitive decline with aging, or at least, cognitive breaking. Slow breaking. But, it's in conditions of disease where you have fewer and fewer of those new brain cells being born. And the question is, how do the limitations of fewer new brain cells in the adult brain impact cognition as you get older? So these researchers that they just published in Cell Stem Cell their paper on human adult neurogenesis loss. It corresponds with cognitive decline during epilepsy progression. So over time, during a life with epilepsy, there is persistent, present, progressive cognitive decline over time, and that is in intelligence, verbal learning, and memory. And that's usually over about 20 years of duration in the disease. And this critical period, according to the study, coincides with an exponential loss of what are called immature granule neurons. And these immature granule neurons go on to incorporate from the hippocampus into other areas of the hippocampus and the rest of the brain. In this study, they took samples of the brain from patients undergoing surgery because of their epilepsy. And in the samples of brain tissue from alive adult humans, they were able to show that these individuals indeed had a smaller number of immature granule cell neurons. And specifically, the interest is, okay, so they've got fewer. What does that mean? In mice, when they looked at the mouse hippocampus, they found that smaller numbers of these new neurons in the adult brain led to deficits in visual processing and learning. But in the humans, they found that the deficits were involved in verbal learning. So the deficit more often as individuals age is a problem with hearing what people say, holding it in their memory, and then using that information to then do things later in time. And individuals with larger numbers of these immature granule neurons have higher verbal learning scores than individuals who have fewer. And the interest is, why is it different between mice and humans? Why do the smaller numbers of cells impact visual learning in mice, and humans who have a very big visual cortex, why is it verbal learning in humans? So it's a really interesting question, and it probably goes back to a sometime long ago in our ancestry and our evolution. But number one, super interesting that there's real tangible evidence of new neurons being born in your brain throughout your lifetime. This is really important and exciting. And number two, that the area of importance with these neurons is verbal learning. Regardless, how do you stay healthy? How do you keep your brain on top in peak position? We all know it. It's drink caffeine. No.
Coffee.
Coffee. No. But some of the benefits that were being posited by that study earlier that you brought up are also benefits that come from daily activity, 30 minutes of activity a day if you can get it. Additionally, at least 6 hours of sleep a night. So good sleep is very important. A nice healthy diet, not lots of processed foods. Sleep, it helps your brain take out the trash. Exercise, it opens up the blood vessels and it gets new blood and all sorts of great things to the brain. It makes the brain happy. There's a blood, brain, gut, whole body system that's involved. But we want to keep our brains happy so that they keep growing new neurons for as long as we can live, so that we can keep hearing each other and learning from one another. I mean, another interesting question is verbal learning, really, really important, but these are all people who can hear. So for people who can hear versus people who cannot hear, I would wonder what the differences, if any, there are in this. How does it, if you've been deaf for your whole life, what other deficits would there be? Yeah.
So, but this sounds like a good reason to tune into next week's episode.
I do think it does seem like a good reason to tune into next week's episode after you either get on with a good day full of exercise and good food and interacting with other people, because socializing and learning verbally is very important, and also a good night's sleep. I'm gonna get a good night's sleep. So have we done it?
I think we did.
We made it to the end of the show?
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this show on Justin's day after his birthday and on Blair's birthday. Make sure you say hello to them on the social medias. You could probably also email them if you have their email addresses. Just put TWIS right in the subject line. But we have to give the shout outs right now. Thank you so much, Fada, for all of your help with social media and show notes for the show. Everyone in the chat room right now while we're watching, thank you for catching the clipping, for being here, for being a part of the conversation. We really appreciate you. And if you are there, we appreciate you keeping it a great place to be. Gord, Arnlore, others who make sure everybody's nice and kind and call people on stuff. Thank you for doing that. Identity 4, thank you for recording the show. Rachel, thank you for editing the show. And if any of you want to get in on that Discord server where people are chatting, make sure that you become a Patreon sponsor. So right now, I do want to thank all of our Patreon sponsors, and definitely must say a big thank you to Eden Mundell, Alan Viola, Aaron Anathema, Arthur Kepler, Craig Potts, Mary Gertz, Teresa Smith, Richard Badge, Bob Coles, Kent Northcote, George Corris, Pierre Belizarb, John Ratnaswamy, Chris Wozniak, Vegard Chefstad, Jonathan Stiles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, Ali Coffin, Regan Shubrew, Sarah Forfar, Don Mundus, PIG, Stephen Alberon, Daryl Myshak, Andrew Swanson, Fred S104, Sky, Luke, Paul Ronovich, Kevin Bearden, Noodles, Jack, Brian Carrington, David E. Youngblood, Sean Clarence Lamb, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Astenplo, Steve Leesman, a.k.a. C. McKen Hayes, Howard Tan, Christopher Rabin, Richard Brendan, Minish, Johnny Gridley, Remy Day, G. Burton Lattimore, Flying Out, Christopher Dreyer, Artyom, Greg Briggs, John Atwood, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Paul, Rodney Lewis, Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Craig Landon, Sue Doster, Jason Olds, Dave Neighbor, Eric Knapp, Lon Makes EO, Adam Mishkan, Kevin Parachan, Aaron Luthen, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paul D. Disney, David Simmerly, Patrick Pecoraro, and Tony Steele. Thank you all for your support on Patreon. And if anyone out there would like to support us and specifically get some support in before the end of the year, we'd love you to do that. If you head over to twiscott.org and click on the Patreon link, you too can be a Patreon supporter of the show. On next week's show, is it our end of year review, Justin?
Yeah, we will be back again Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific time. And then again, Thursday, 5 a.m. Central European time, broadcasting live from our Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and all the other channels. And it will be the year in review, when we take a moment to look back on the year in science that was, and we'll pick out some of our favorite or least favorite or stories that
mostly the top 11, right?
is it the yes, it's the top 11 stories of 2024. Is that what year it is? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think so.
Why is it 11, top 11 and not top 10, Kiki?
Because there's always more. You always want to know what didn't make the list, so we're going to give you one.
What was on that verge of making the list that just didn't? And instead of saying, oh, here's something that would have made the list, but we'll actually talk about that 11th thing.
So come on back next Wednesday.
And we'll tell you what the 12th thing would have been had we had time to.
And if we were some other things, we'd be like, oh, it's TWIS wrapped, right? Isn't that what everything? What's your year wrapped?
I've never.
Everybody's wrapping their years. It's like the big thing right now.
It's kind of when you end a production, it's the wrap party. I get it. Yeah. Our year in review.
Wrap it up like a present.
Yeah. So usually we will also ask the audience if you had a favorite story from this year, you could send it along. And we'll be sure to, talk about it.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump right now, but if you want to send us a little note, you can suggest on social media with our @TWIS Science handle or This Week in Science, wherever we are, or you can send us an email, put TWIS in the subject line and your email telling us your suggestions for the annual Top 11 Science Wrap.
Are you going to give out an email for them to email you at?
Well, I'm Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com. That's where you can email me. Let us know. Put TWIS in the subject line. So the subject line, put TWIS in the subject line.
Shake it off.
Oh, man. And if you don't put TWIS in the subject line, you are going to become one of those little baby adult neurons that was never born in my brain.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
But what do people want to do if they want to listen to us as a podcast or other stuff, Justin?
Oh, you just Google This Week in Science wherever you have a browser. If you enjoyed the show, get your friends to enjoy the show as well by taking one of their devices, subscribing them to the show without telling them, and then they'll have a fun surprise.
Yay, science! And then for more information,
on anything you've heard here today, links to the stories will be available on our website, www.twis.org. We can also sign up for our newsletter. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover or address, just let us know. And we look forward to discussing science with you again next week. If you've learned anything from the show, please remember.
It's all in your head, except for those little baby neurons that didn't get born yet.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science.
Woo! We made it through the wilderness. We made it through the science. I should totally Weird Al some of those songs.
Oh my goodness.
TWIS style. Weird Kiki. And I really, really should have taken a Sudafed earlier, and my nose wouldn't have been so sniffly for this this program. Ow, ow, ow. Somebody keeps booping. There's little notifications happening somewhere on my computer, and I don't understand where they're coming from. Maybe from the chat room. Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching another show. Justin, we all needed to go, and it's time to go, or is it time? Did you want to talk because you had things you wanted to say?
Oh, yeah, I wanted to weigh in really quick, a quick hot take on the mess that's going on right now in the media.
The media, it's very large, and it is full of hot takes.
Yeah, I'm getting irritated by things that I see in the media. Right now, there is big story going on in the United States, in case anybody has missed it. It turns out there was a murder in New York City. And it's okay now. It's okay now. They caught the murderer.
Yes.
No need to panic, New Yorkers. They caught the murderer in New York City. So it's fine. It's safe again to be on the streets of New York.
Nobody felt like they were.
Corporate media seems really taken aback by the fact that there's a lot of apathy. And I don't in any way condone, defend, blah, blah, blah. That's not the point. The point I'm looking at is they're not addressing the obvious, which is the reason there was so much apathy and sort of lack of caring about this one murder. Is because a lot of people in the United States, when it comes to health insurance, lack agency. And when you lack agency, when you are unempowered, the French Revolution, nobody's like, those murderers. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody
they're mad at Marie.
People had their heads cut off. Innocent people. The reason people look at that is because the peasants didn't have agency within their society.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I think, an argument for universal healthcare, government centered, if I've ever heard one, because then people have agency. It may not work great. You might not like it, but you can vote for somebody who claims to going to change it or has a different strategy for it. Right now, people can't vote on their sort of captured health insurance based on the region in which they live and the job that they have, right? And this is creating a tremendous amount of frustration. Now, being from California, I think my last insurance company there was Kaiser Permanente. They reject claims at a rate around 7%. Apparently, this United Healthcare, this is an East Coast thing. I'd never even heard of it before, but it's huge over there. It's like 30%. So that looks like a disparity. Here's the other thing that I also want to point out. This is not just an insurance issue. There is also a massive lack of oversight for a lot of doctoring that takes place. So if you went to your, I get it. There's an algorithm that is making health decisions. Unhuman, unempathetic, impersonal. People are getting form letters, computer generated, unempathetic, unhuman touch, rejecting what they feel is necessary or unnecessary, depending on who's looking. Okay.
The story, and the stories, there are so many stories. Everybody knows somebody, or
Right.
there are connections.
Now,
Mhm.
from the health insurance side of it, the denying claims is also going to be part and due to doctors overprescribing, doctors over recommending, doctors wanting to perform additional surgeries. Like, this is also a thing. The healthcare system has all of these different financial interests that need to be profitable. And so they're all in competition for those dollars. And the patients are stuck in the middle of it. This is exactly the argument that needs to, and nobody wants to address this. Instead, the media is talking about, this is what I also think is funny. Look at a lot of this corporate media phrasing and framing, and they're now pointing out that this kid came from a wealthy family. The murderer came from a wealthy family. The idea here is, here's the translation. Hey, is there a way we can get the poors to be less empathetic? Oh, I know. Frame him as a rich guy. They hate rich guys. It's utterly ridiculous and out of touch, which is a phrase I didn't mean to echo, but I just did. It's utterly out of touch with the reality of why the lack of agency in the part of Americans and their healthcare made it so that somebody could commit murder and they wouldn't care. Also, let me point out something about agency. This wasn't the only murder that took place in New York.
Yeah.
The fact that somebody was important enough to have a massive manhunt, national media, intense coverage, whereas, and I'm going to tell you, in case you didn't know, other murders that took place in New York didn't, also tells you what the interest of the media is. Look, if there was a landlord dispute and there was a murder, is that more or less? If there was a drug deal or somebody if there was
how many go unreported, right? How many never get any attention?
Right. Why was it important to have a massive manhunt for this person as opposed to any of the others? Because there's a disparity in treatment and in agency that's taking place. And that has to get resolved. This isn't how it should be resolved, but the insurance companies are going to now be hiring more security. They're scrubbing themselves from the internet. So now it's going to be even more anonymous who the decision makers are in healthcare.
Yeah.
That's not going to improve.
That's not good.
What needs to take place, and it's going to be really painful and hard because people are going to have to say, there's a reason. This, honestly, if this was a hypothetical scenario that we had created, hey, if somebody killed the CEO of the least popular insurance company in the United States, health insurance company in the United States, would people care? You didn't actually need it to take place to know that there would be this reaction.
It was newsworthy because it's an issue, right? Because healthcare and insurance are an issue that people.
So that's the reason it was such an.
That's why that's the sensational aspect of it. That's where it gets started, but then damage control has to happen.
So is it the city of New York doing damage control by putting all those resources into that murder, but none of the others? Is it damage control by the media to have been pointing it out? I mean, like down. So
initially, no. Initially,
hey, why does everybody think this is a big deal? It's ridiculous, ridiculous. And
but school shootings and like zombie Tom Hanks is bringing up, like there are so many things that should also get more attention. But yeah, these kinds of events, this event, right? Previously, how often do things like this happen where, the CEO of a company, like my immediate thought was like, man, it's like all of a sudden Fight Club. like 12 Monkeys in Fight Club, like things are starting to get real.
But doesn't that like, why would it be different? Why is it different? Like, because they're not
it's the
supposed to be
pulse of
part
our
of the
country.
same society as everybody else. Like, I don't understand. Like, right?
Who? The
my point
CEOs
is,
or
two people have an argument over money and somebody gets murdered isn't a national headline. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Because
it happens.
they're part of the general public.
Mm-hmm.
That's happening. Why is it different? And the sentiment that the reaction of the public,
many reasons, but yeah,
the reaction from the public should be taken. The insurance companies, the health industry entirely should look at this and go, we are failing. If they can murder a CEO of one of the health insurance companies in this country, and most people say that they don't care. And okay, here's another phrasing.
That's not what
I don't know it's most people.
No.
But here's how it's being phrased. It's people on the internet. Now, typically when we're discussing public sentiment, they don't go,
all those people on the internet.
What do you mean people on the internet? Those are real people. Those are human beings who are posting rejection letters from these health insurance companies. These are a lot of people who are pointing out they didn't care. I think it's terrible. I don't think obviously murder should have to be what people do to get any kind of attention to any kind of an issue ever. This is the CEO is, he's a dad. He's you can say he's an innocent guy. And then he's a human being.
He's a human being.
Everything. On the other hand, not to justify murder, but again, it's agency. When
I think you're right.
You have huge centers of power over people's lives that are out of the public sector, that are out of government, or even if they are in government, but you can't vote. Like this is the thing where you have to understand why the United States of America even became a country in the first place. It was a lack of agency. It was a lack of control over their lives. It was a lack of empowerment. And these are the things that caused revolution in the United States. These are the things that caused revolution in France. These are the things that overturn dictatorships. This is what's happening maybe now in Syria. Like this is the cause is a lack of agency. You can take all of the other things out of it and say that the health insurance industry or the health insurance in America could be just as bad in a government-controlled system. But people would still have agency. People would still be able to vote for people to be in charge of it who would push it in different directions. And currently, they do not have that when it comes to healthcare. And they didn't vote on it also. So there's also a hypocritical thing, which is I assume a lot of people who've been denied coverage are also people who politically didn't want government control of healthcare because they could afford private insurance. And when their private insurance then rejects their claims, there's going to be a tremendous amount of anger because they believe that they were paying into a system that would allow them special access to healthcare. And now they're not receiving it. And they feel like their contract is broken. So the resentment is only going to just be exponentially increasing. Meanwhile, the media is going to tell you this was a rich kid, so you poors shouldn't like him. And it's only people on the internet who are fetishizing the killer, and it has nothing to do with the completely broken system. Anyway, that's the end of rant.
I think one way to think about there's different stages to the media cycle of this entire story. And yeah, so you have the initial assassination, and then you have the chase of the killer, finding out who did it, who was this person. These are, these are intriguing stories, right? It's something that targets the pulse of the American public, because so many people maybe have a gripe with insurance companies. And this was a public figure who was taken, who was murdered.
But
I'm not done yet. And then from there, so you have these story elements, right, that can change the narrative from place to place. First it's like, this person, they're young, who are they? And they're talking about, this assassination, right? So emotions are high in the people who are reading. And then it's emotional investment in the story, right? Who are we going to find? Are we going to find this person? Why'd they do this? Who would do such a thing? And then people on the internets can, have their conversations about who this person could be and how they feel about it. Do they care? Do they not care? Do they, how do they feel? And the emotion. And, now we're at the point where we've found this person, but at the same time, there is the possibility of this individual being held up as a martyr who could, be used as martyrs are in propaganda to hold up. There's there, and so the news cycle at this point, they don't want that to happen. We don't want more of these things. We don't want this to become, we don't want violence. We don't want, and so I'm just trying to hash through the possibilities, but I feel like the media now is playing more on the corporate side of things, and turning the narrative away from using this kid as a martyr. They're like you said, they're turning the public support for the shooter.
And I agree with all that. The only thing I would tweak on that is that I think initially the murder of a CEO wasn't meant to spark the controversy. It was meant to this is look what they've done, like compassion for an important person who has been killed. Mm-hmm. And we're shocked to find out, because look, everybody in the large corporate media is a privileged rich kid who's making a lot of money and has plenty of insurance. And if their insurance doesn't cover something, they'll just pay for it. They don't understand at all why people were reacting the way that they were. To them, it was an important person was murdered, and here's a story that's going to generate interest in that just because of that. I don't think they anticipated the fact that America would push back so vehemently against that narrative. And then, you have the corporate media focusing on one murder because it's one of their important people. We have the police department in New York do a massive manhunt because it's an important person. And now we have the media saying, oh, it's not fair that, that this person could be, the sentiment in America would be for this person. They're attacking the individual. They're ignoring the fact that they completely are, I hate to keep echoing, out of touch with what the American people's sentiment was on this. Mm-hmm. It was so strong. Like, you don't see a murder take place in America where the people on the internet all jump up and go, yeah, that was fine. It's not actually in the fiber of the American people to condone these things. And the fact that there was so much lack of empathy
or lack of condemnation.
Yeah. Like,
there's a lot right now that,
but I think
people in power are shocked to find out that not everybody's totally on board with everything.
Yeah. And the fact that, they didn't, that a lot of people also just didn't care that there was a murder in New York.
Yeah.
This person is not more important as a human being.
Yeah.
Of the other murders that take place in New York City. But the fact that, like even the fact that they were presenting it that way also shows how completely out of touch. Like it's just, anyway. What is medical like in Denmark? Asked John Hogan. Nobody's going to kill anybody over it. First of all, it's free and everybody has access to it. And if you need something, you get it. That's how medical works in Denmark. It's through your doctor who makes the decisions about your healthcare, and that's it. And they of course have guidelines and things that are going to be covered and things that won't, and things that sometimes you'll have to wait for a thing, and sometimes you go in right away and get a thing. But you have access. You don't pay out of pocket. Nobody's ever gone bankrupt for paying for their medical here. And if somebody killed the head of, medical bureaucracy in Denmark, there would be massive outrage. Because people love their healthcare. They like being able to see their doctors. They like the system because it works. And it's just that simple. Anyway.
There are so many tragedies in this world.
But again, too, like in defense of the insurance companies, I'll say this part: like they're a small group of people who are dealing with all of the requests from all of the doctors in a big region, covering millions of people, right? So it's sort of like if you went into your doctor to consult with your doctor, and then so of course they're going to be impersonal. You went in to see your doctor, and you're there with an auditorium of 1,500 to 13,000 people who are all like, "I got this problem. Can you look at this?" To one doctor. Like there's going to be an impersonal method and algorithm. Like it's not going to be personalized. The insurance companies look at your things. Right. That's why it has to be in the hands of doctors, but it has to be under a guideline so that doctors aren't playing, getting profit per surgery or per prescription or per.
But also, so there aren't just so many automatic denials, and where systems are set up.
Denials, but then there's also going to be like the private hospital that needs to charge as much as they can to insurance companies to make their money, to keep their operation profitable. And so they're going to be trying to push through all of it is bad. The way it's set up, it's all bad. It needs to change completely. And that's why
the better. We'd like it to change for the better of people, so people can be healthier longer, have longer health spans.
Or just keep reading Coffee Lobby news and drinking more coffee. And that's going to cure
for everyone. And you'll have new neurons into your adulthood. Not an insurance issue, but I read an article this week of saying that women going in for labor to have their babies were being given pain drugs for either just childbirth or C-section. Things like, they give fentanyl. They also give some like benzodiazepine kind of drugs, and there are several drugs that some women have been going in, and then they do a tox screen, and the drugs are bad drugs. And so then social services get called, and there was a whole report about women having their children taken away from them because of the pain relief drugs that are given to them during labor.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah, it's a whole new level of insanity, that this is where systems are not talking to each other correctly. It's just craziness. I don't understand. There are, if there are places where any of the knowledge that can come from science or social sciences or anything can actually help change these systems for the better. I really, really hope it does it sooner rather than later. People, let's do things sooner. Let's fix it.
Yeah.
Let's fix things.
All right.
I want to.
Kiki,
I'm gonna have
it's
a lunch
getting
group
pretty
here
late,
in
and
Portland.
I know you've been sick.
Yeah,
lately.
I'm sniffly, and it's very cold because I don't think the heater's been on in my basement, so I'm kind of cold. And my noted code is. I think I'm gonna start a lunch group called SciComm Nom Nom Nom.
I don't even know what that means.
We'll talk about science and eat food.
That sounds like fun.
Oh my god, yeah, I want to do it. All right, is it time? My cat is here. Cappy, what do you want? Are you cold? You're puffy. You want to eat food? Yeah, I want to go to bed. Okay. I had a conversation with my cat. We've done it. Justin, say good morning, Justin.
Good morning, Justin. Say goodnight, Kiki.
Good night, Kiki. Good night, everyone. Or good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us for another episode of TWIS tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Good gracious, brain dead. Bye-bye. Long live the brain cells. Next Wednesday will be our year-end show, top 11 countdown of 2024. Do not miss it. Blair will be back for the show next week. We look forward to seeing you there. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Stay curious. And stay lucky. Bye. Luck. It's all we got. We're ending stream. I'm click buttons.